or mild cigarette made by the same manufacturer. Now, the tobacco in these two cigarettes is absolutely identical. There is no such thing as low tar or low nicotine tobacco. All tobacco is the same. The only difference between these two cigarettes is the length of the filter. What you will see is that the filter of the extra light or the ultralight cigarette is a good deal longer than the filter from the regular cigarette. And what this does is it gives the smoke more time to cool down before it enters the lungs. And this is what gives the illusion of being a milder or a lighter taste. It really is nothing to do with the activity of the smoke. It's to do with the temperature of the smoke. The cooler the smoke, the stronger the illusion of mildness. The hotter the smoke, the more the sensation of harshness. So the shorter the filter, the higher the temperature. This is the only difference between these two cigarettes. To be honest with you, not that the filter makes any difference at all. I just used to inhale deeper or smoke more or smoke it further down the butt or just break the filter off anyway. If breathing hot fumes into our lungs was pleasurable, then there are many other ways of getting this pleasure. For example, you would welcome the opportunity to inhale barbecue smoke in the yard. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the smell of barbecue smoke. But can you imagine choosing to inhale it into your lungs? Or you could walk in and out of a sauna. I mean, the air in the sauna is much hotter than the outside air, and it really burns your lungs for the first couple of breaths. I don't see people walking in and out of saunas 20 times a day for pleasure. It just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't make any sense. What about image? I mean, this is why the vast majority of us start to smoke. All the cool girls seem to smoke. All the tough guys seem to smoke. But is this why we're still smoking today? Nah, of course not. In fact, I think it's probably easier to argue today that the image of being a smoker is an extremely negative one. Oh boy, and the anti-smoking campaigners have really seen to it that most smokers are made to feel embarrassed and ashamed and guilty. It's ironic, you know, smoking and smokers for years were considered to be the most sociable of people, and yet today they are considered, wrongly in my view, the most antisocial of all addicts. James Dean, John Wayne, Steve McQueen, Marlene Dietrich, they weren't made to look cool, tough and sexy because they smoked. It's the other way around. They made smoking look cool, tough and sexy. It was all so different way back then, wasn't it? You could smoke anywhere, couldn't you? Buses, taxis, trains, planes, bars, bingo halls, schools, even some hospitals. If you went to a friend's house, you didn't even have to ask them before you lit up. Boy, haven't things gone full circle. These days, many cities and towns are actually framing legislation that will prevent you from smoking in your own home or in your own car. These days, smoking for the image, it's a little bit like drinking a bottle of gin to get sober. It just doesn't make any sense. You might argue that you don't care what society says or thinks about you. You're your own person, you play by your own rules. You're a bit of a rebel and, you don't care who knows it. But how do you show your rebellious nature? By becoming a slave. How do you show your uniqueness? By joining a club with 1 billion enforced members, the vast majority of whom want to quit. This is not a good way of showing your rebellious streak. As a youngster, you might have chosen to rebel, but as an adult smoker, you certainly aren't choosing whether you smoke or not. If you had any choice whatsoever about this, you wouldn't be needing to watch this. You'd just quit smoking. In any case, who are you sending this message of rebellion to? I mean, I think as teenagers, we're trying to impress other teenagers. But who are we trying to impress now? And do non-smokers get the message? When non-smokers look at smokers, do they think, oh boy, what a free spirit, I wish I was more like that? Or do they just think it's all a bit sad? Do they see a drug addict, pure and simple? Smoking is so 20th century. Having dispensed with the standard arguments in defense of smoking, Let's now look at the real reasons why people smoke. Alan used to call them the big four: boredom, relaxation, concentration, and stress. These are the real reasons that people smoke. Yeah? Now let's deal with boredom first. If smoking relieved boredom, smokers would never be bored. Just because we smoke when we're bored, that doesn't mean that smoking relieves boredom. I mean, if every time I got bored I went and got myself a glass of water, would I begin to tell myself that there was a magic ingredient in water that was a medical cure for boredom? Of course not. It's just that going to get myself a glass of water provided a momentary distraction. But if we smoked to relieve boredom, we wouldn't smoke when we weren't bored. But we smoke all the time, whether we're bored or not. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. And then, of course, there is the question of whether smoking actually does relieve boredom. I mean, let's say I'm a smoker, and I'm sitting there and I think, oh boy, I'm bored. Oh, I know, I'll have a cigarette. So you light a cigarette. Ding! Ooh, I'm not bored anymore. How wonderful is that? I mean, when was the last time this happened to you? Never happened to me in 30 years of smoking. Before I was bored, and now I'm just bored and smoking. I mean, let's face it, smoking's hardly mind-absorbing, is it? Half the time you're smoking, you're barely even aware you've got one lit. I think that what we say, what we mean when we say that we smoke to relieve boredom, I think what we really mean is that sometimes when we're bored, going for a cigarette provides a bit of a distraction. But there's a bit of a contradiction here, because many smokers, myself included when I was a smoker, claim that smoking helps them concentrate. But when you need to concentrate, do you look for a distraction? Or do you look to get rid of distractions? You look to get rid of distractions, don't you, so that you can concentrate properly? Well, which one is it then? Is it a distraction when you're bored, or does it remove distractions when you need to concentrate? Because it certainly can't do both. I mean, think about it this way. If smoking enhanced cognitive function, our brain performance, our memory, our creativity, any of these things, then smokers would be smarter than non-smokers. And I hate to be the one to break this news to you, but it ain't the case. Like I said, you know, if you really think about it, if smoking enhanced our brain's performance, everybody that used their brain for a living would be a smoker. Doctors, researchers, surgeons, airline pilots, air traffic controllers. In fact, it would be mandatory for many of these people to smoke. The truth is, very, very few of these people smoke. And the ones that do, quite frankly, are less able for doing so. I mean, think about it. Would you want a brain surgeon to be dying for a cigarette while he was operating on you? I'm not sure I would. I smell a rat, and a pretty big one too. And there's another contradiction as well with stress and relaxation. People say, you don't want to know me. First thing in the morning, before I've had my first cigarette of the day, I'm barely even human. This thing, bang, it gives me that jolt that I need to get up and get on with life, take on the world, and so on. But then we say, well, the cigarette relaxes me. You know, if I'm in a stressful situation, the cigarette just kind of takes the edge off, enables me to enjoy myself. But these two things are complete opposites. What we're saying is that the first thing in the morning, we use the cigarette as a stimulant to try to get going. And then for the rest of the day, we use it as a relaxant to try to take the edge off. What kind of amazing drug is this? It doesn't really make sense, does it? I mean, if smoking relieved stress, smokers would be less stressed than non-smokers, correct? Is this the case? I would argue it's the opposite. If smoking aided relaxation, then smokers would be more relaxed than non-smokers. And chain smokers would be the most relaxed people on the planet, because they're getting all this relaxation. In reality, these are the least relaxed people on the planet, not the most relaxed. It is blatantly obvious to anyone that cares to think about this subject for more than 2 seconds that this one drug cannot have these two completely opposite effects. There are drugs that have more than one effect. They're called biphasic drugs. Nicotine isn't one of them. Think about it this way. I could sell you a pill that got you going in the mornings, that, ready to take on the world, bang, bang, bang. And I could sell you a pill that relaxed you in stressful situations, just took the edge off. But if I said that the same pill would do both things, you'd call the cops. What I'm really saying here is that there is an awful lot about smoking that upon closer examination genuinely doesn't appear to make sense. You see, very, very early on in our smoking lives, we give the cigarette power. We put it up here on this pedestal, and we give it all this power, and we learn the smoking script. It'll help me relax. It'll help me concentrate. It'll keep me thin. It'll help me cope with stress. What we ignore are the many very obvious contradictions. I mean, if smoking's supposed to keep you thin, then why are there so many overweight smokers? Your sixth instruction is to stop giving the cigarette the credit. Let's, take this cigarette down off this pedestal. And let's peel away these myths and illusions, and let's, find out what's really going on here, what's really behind this thing. Now, we've reached a very important point. What I'm saying is that no smoker genuinely enjoys smoking. We tell ourselves we do, but really only because we have to. But when you strip all of these myths and illusions away, no smoker genuinely enjoys smoking. Now, some people find this very, very difficult to accept. Our logical brain somehow just can't accept that we would put up with all of these horrific disadvantages of being a smoker when there are no upsides to smoking. Our brains just cannot put up with this. But that doesn't mean that this is true. That doesn't mean that this belief is true. Now, I know that you've all come here today watching this webcast with your own thoughts and your own beliefs about smoking and about quitting. All I'm asking you to do is to put those thoughts to the side for a couple of hours. I'm about to explain to you a different